In this video, I'm going to show you what kind of instruments and materials you will need to set up for a composite filling. In this example, I'm going to be doing a composite filling on an upper right central incisor. So let's say that this is a mesial. Let's say that we're restoring a mesial cavity on our upper right central incisor. So as always, we have our basic set of instruments, which is the mouth mirror. We have the straight probe, which is the dentist uses to detect the decay, or he can be using a sickle probe. This probe is very good for detecting interproximal decay because of its shape, and some dentists would prefer this type of probe. Then, of course, we have the tweezers, which are used for holding any objects, for putting or taking out any objects into the mouth. Depending on the patient, the dentist might give the local anesthetic, and for this we'll need the local anesthetic syringe with a cartridge placed inside and a needle. What you need to prepare before the dentist starts working is the suction tips, and here I have some examples of them. So this one is a disposable saliva ejector. It is single use, and the way it works is you can bend it any shape you like, and it is very useful for collecting water from down the patient's throat. Another suction tip that you can use is a wide bore aspirating tip. This is one example, or this is another example of a wide bore aspirating tip, or also called a high volume aspirating tip. That you will need to connect to the dentist side of the chair, the fast and the slow hand pieces, and get all their burrs ready. So you need to prepare the fast handpiece burrs, which are the friction grip diamond burrs, and the slow handpiece burrs, which are usually the latch grip steel burrs. So once the dentist is finished with preparing the cavity, and this means with removing the decay and giving the cavity a nice shape, he can begin the filling process. So here we have some instruments which are used for that. Here we have this instrument, which is actually an excavator, and this instrument is used to remove decay if the cavity is quite deep. So if the cavity is deep, the dentist might be afraid that if he carries on drilling with the burrs, he might expose the pulp in the pulp chamber. So with this instrument, he can remove any remaining bits of decay a lot more gently and with a lot more control. So this is the excavator. Then these two instruments which follow, this is a flat plastic instrument, and if you have a look at it, you will see that both of its ends are rounded. If you compare this to the next instrument, this is a Ward's carver. You will see that with a Ward's carver, one end is rounded and the other end is quite pointed. So the dentist can use either of those instruments, or they can use both of them. It depends on their own preference. Then the next instrument is a ball-ended burnisher. You'll see that it has two balls at the end. Usually one is smaller than the other, and it is used for placing the composite inside the cavity. So these are the instruments. So once the filling has been placed and light cured, the dentist needs to adjust the bite, and for this he will use articulating paper, which can be held in an instrument called Miller's forceps. And the way to open it is like this. You squeeze gently and the paper will come out. To put it back, you squeeze and put the paper back in its place. So these are the instruments. Usually these instruments would be on the dentist's tray. Now let's go through the materials that you will need. So these were the instruments that you will need to set up. They're usually placed on the dentist tray. Let's go through some of the materials that will be needed for a composite filling. Depending on your dentist, some of these items might be on your side on a clean tissue, or some of them might be placed on the dentist tray. So first of all, what we need is cotton rolls. They're a very good method of moisture control, and you would need quite a few because they need to be changed throughout the treatment. Another method of moisture control might be this. This is a dry guard, and it is placed to the back of the mouth in order to block the opening of the parotid gland, which is in the area of the upper second or third molar. Now, as we said, we are restoring a mesial cavity on an upper central incisor. For this, we will need a matrix strip, and in this case, we're going to use a clear or transparent matrix strip. It is clear so that the curing light can pass through it and cure the composite material underneath. What the dentist will need is acid etch. The acid etch usually comes in syringe. It can be different colors. This one is green. It is usually phosphoric acid, and it is placed on the tooth to roughen up the surface. So this is the acid etch. So after the acid etch has been placed and washed off, the dentist will dry the tooth, and then the bond will need to be placed. So you will need some kind of bond and bond applicator. Depending on the dentist, he can use either of these. This is an ultra brush and this is a micro brush. Both are used for applying bond to the already prepared cavity. This is one form of composite. It comes in syringe form. What you might need with this one is a paper pad to place the composite onto the pad and pass it to the dentist. The way this works is you have to take off the cap and very gently twist the handle, and you will see the composite material coming out at the end. You would place this on the paper pad and you would pass it to the dentist like that. You might need a selection of composite shades as well as a shade guide, because this is a front tooth and the match of the composite has to be very exact. After the bond and each bit of composite is placed, the dentist needs to light cure the composite. Therefore, you will need to have a light cure prepared, as well as orange protective goggles or an orange shield which you can place over the patient's mouth so that you're not looking at the curing light. Don't forget that curing light is very bad for your eyes, and you have to use these protective goggles, or if you don't have them, just look away while the composite is being cured. After the dentist has completed the filling and no more composite material needs to be added, he will check the occlusion with the articulating paper. He will do any adjustments that need to be done until the patient doesn't feel the filling high anymore, and then he can polish, or he can polish the filling. He can use something like this. This is a pop-on mandrel with a polishing disc. The disc comes off quite easily like this, and it can go back on. So it just pops on. That's why it's called a pop-on mandrel. And because this was a mesial restoration, we need to polish the proximal surface, and therefore we can use a finishing or a polishing strip.